Hi everyone, I'm Will Brown and welcome to the WP Quickies series, bite-sized WordPress tips and tricks in 30 minutes or less. In this lunchtime quickies, I'm going to be talking about local blueprints as site templates. If you don't know what local is, that's not a problem. I'm going to tell you what it is in a minute. So thanks for taking your time on this Sydney afternoon, and welcome to those overseas and those watching on the replay. Before we start, just make sure you hit the subscribe button, ding the bell if you're on YouTube, connect with me on LinkedIn, and press thumbs up on Facebook, all that good stuff. Okay, we have a Facebook group. So if you go on Facebook and search for WordPress Sydney Meetup, then you'll be able to send me some questions in there and follow up some detailed discussions afterwards. It's always a good place to hang out and ask questions. If you're looking for WordPress meetups, a lot of them are kicking back up again. Visit wpaustralia.org. And they've got a button there called Find a Meetup, and there's also a button to join the Slack community as well. Now, if you're a web developer designer who creates and maintains client websites, I have an Ultimate Website Owner's Survival Guide, and it's going to basically help to add to your bottom line. So you can visit wasg.com.au in your own time. Okay, so the next in-person monthly meeting, I had to cancel the last one because I had COVID. And the next monthly in-person meeting, WordPress Sydney Meetup, is on the last Monday of every month, 6 p.m. We hold it at the Microsoft Reactor studio place, and that's just next to Wynyard Station. So this month, at the end of this month, I'm going to talk about WordPress speed hacks. So it's always a popular topic, different ways to speed up your WordPress website. But the main thing is it's an in-person event. So come along if you can, 6 p.m. on June the 27th. Just network with people, grab a bite to eat as well. You should have some pizza there. I'm always looking for topics and suggestions as well, so I can queue up some WP Quickies topics throughout the year. So I've sent a link on the chat as well, and you can QR code this later on in the video as well. Now, all the links will be copied into the video description and the meetup group afterwards, so don't worry about that. Please ask me some questions in the chat, and just let me know who you are and where you're from. So I've got Jean. Hey, Jane from the Central Coast. Thanks for joining me today. This one's a little bit more developer focused, so I'm not expecting a huge amount of people joining me today, and that is okay. I'm trying to make these things as quick as possible. Okay, let's just jump into it, shall I? Okay, local blueprints, site templates. Okay, so let's just rewind it a little bit. So what is local anyway? So local is a desktop application from hosting company Flywheel, and it's currently the best way to set up and run a WordPress development environment on your local computer, on your local machine. Now, I did a pretty comprehensive meetup, an online meetup, an evening one, on local itself, the app. So you can go and watch that, and the link's there on YouTube. I've pasted the link in the chat as well if you want to go through. And I go through the app and all the settings and how it works and how to spin up a WordPress environment and all that sort of stuff. But today we're just going to be focusing on the blueprints themselves. Okay, so here is a screenshot from my local my local app here. So what I've done is I've spun up a new WordPress website. I create some blueprints from those. And you can find the blueprint down on the left-hand side, and that's where all the local links are when you boot up the local app. So it's the third link, fourth, I suppose, if you correct profile down there at the bottom. And click on that, and it shows you all the blueprints for those. And blueprints are basically copies or clones of existing WordPress websites that you've spun up, that you've created within the local app. Now, the idea is that you configure a WordPress website once, save it as a blueprint, and then use the blueprint to spin up a new website with all that configuration stuff in there. Now, it does save you a heap of time not having to install plugins, configure them, configure your theme, do all your settings, do all your customize, all that sort of stuff that you probably would normally do if you're spinning up a new client website for those. So you can see here, I've got some blueprints in my local. I've got one for LearnDash. I've got one with LearnDash, but it's linked with WooCommerce. So LearnDash by itself has a payment gateway, but a lot of people like to use it with WooCommerce because then the WooCommerce allows you to extend more of the e-commerce type stuff like reporting, whatever. So I've got a LearnDash with WooCommerce, and it's already linked up with that, so I don't need to set that up at all. I've got just a basic WordPress business site with Elementor. I've got a WordPress business site with GeneratePress, which is what I currently use at the moment mostly. And then I've got a WordPress business website with WooCommerce. And again, the WooCommerce is all set up. I've got the Stripe setting, the PayPal setting that links to my sandbox. So it's ready to go and ready to test right out of the box there. So that's just some of my blueprints. I don't have a lot because I don't do a huge range of different types of websites. But if I do need some of these, I'll just spin up a copy of those from a blueprint. Now, if you're new to local, excuse me, it doesn't come with any blueprints out of the box. So you're going to have to create one. Now, this is a little bit different. So this is local. It's an app from the hosting company Flywheel. Now, if you are a Flywheel user, then I know they have blueprints on their actual web hosting client area. So the local blueprints are kind of different. So if you're expecting to see some blueprints in there when you install the local app, you got a bit disappointed because there aren't any. It's completely blank for there. So the idea is step one is you're going to have to create at least one website anyway. Now, the first step to do that is to spin up a new website within local, and it's super, super easy to do. And watch that YouTube video before that when I talked about it, the WordPress Sydney meetup, and I'll show you step by step how to create a new one. It's really, really simple. Now, make sure that your environment is correct for your clients, the ones that you're going to be working on. Specifically, which PHP version. So by default, local will spin up PHP 7 point whatever, 7.4 I think it is at the moment. But you have a choice to run a little bit lower, like 7.2, 7.3, or you can put it up to PHP 8 if you want to do a little bit of testing with the new PHP version 8. Well, it's not new now. You can do that, but make sure you get the PHP version right for the majority of your clients. You want to make sure that your website runs on that particular environment. Also, you want to select which web server as well is closest to your clients' deployments. By default, it runs on Nginx. Local will select Nginx, but if you know that your customers have Apache, you can select Apache. And lastly, is the database. So by default, it goes to MariaDB10. But you can choose MySQL if you want an exact pairing match for those. So very important to make sure that you got your environment set up properly before you're creating a blueprint. Now, you can you import an existing website that you have that's on your local, that's on one of your hosting into a local app, but it's a little bit more work to do that. I'm not going to cover that in this WP Quickie. So the idea here is to spin up a new WordPress business website. Now, step two is you are going to have to configure all your WordPress settings. Now, remember to set the registration type. So you go into the general into settings and then general. Have a look at the registration type. Make sure that the new default role is set to how you do it. Make sure your site language is set. So I set mine to Australian English. And make sure your time zone is correct. And I usually set that for Sydney as well. The next thing to do is really important. This is before you get into the blueprint, is to go into your permalink. So you really should go through all the settings, but these are like the two main areas, is the general settings and then the permalinks. Now, when you boot up a WordPress installation, it's usually defaults to post name for the permalinks, but just check it. Sometimes it can come with plain, depending on how it's been installed. So just make sure your permalinks are set up and your general settings are okay for those. Now, the next step you're going to have to do is to install and configure your theme and your base set of plugins. Now, don't change the settings that are client dependent, just the general theme and plugin settings. So, for example, you could set up a WooCommerce site. You could go into the languages, set the language for that, set the currency, set the country, set up the payment gateways into your development, into your test sandbox, and all that sort of stuff for there. But don't go configuring it specifically for client stuff. We're trying to make this like a general setup for that. So as well as the plugin settings, make sure you go into your theme settings. So if you've got any settings for your theme, maybe you're using Avada or Astra or something like that, make sure you go into those settings and configure things like the base fonts and the base colors and all that sort of stuff as well. And the customizer, make sure you go into customizer because there's some straggling options that kind of straddle between the settings and the customizer for things like WooCommerce and things like themes. So make sure you go into the customizer and set up all the things like the WordPress site logo, the favicon or favicon, however you pronounce that as well. So we're basically doing like a general sweep through the WordPress settings, and just basically setting up a kind of plain vanilla WordPress business website. Okay, so when you're happy and when you've configured your WordPress website as much as you can without going into kind of client-specific information, you're ready to save the blueprint. And it's really, really simple. So you go back to the main menu on your local app, and then on the sites, and you'll see a list of the sites. Right-click on the site that you've just been configuring. So example here, I've only got the one that is on my laptop. When I was doing this. So it's called WP Business Site. So right hand click on that and you'll see the option down below is Save as a Blueprint for those. You can then click on the blueprints icon that we looked at before and check that your blueprints have been saved from here for that. Now, you can rename blueprints by clicking on the 3 horizontal dots to the right-hand side, and it also gives you the option to delete a blueprint as well. But just, make sure that when you've saved it, make sure it's there for that, and you can access that before you go tinker around with your WordPress website again. Okay, so using a blueprint. So once you've got your blueprint there, once you make sure it's all there, it's configured, just sitting there. The next thing is obviously using a blueprint. You want to start using them for your business. Now, using it is super, super easy. So when you are creating a new local website in the local app, if you have any blueprints saved, you're going to see a new option called Create a Blueprint for those. And this is in the Create site here. So this is, I've basically clicked on the plus icon in the app interface. So there it is down on the left-hand side, right down at the bottom, the plus sign. Once you create that, if you've got any blueprints, then it gives you a choice. So you can either create a new site from scratch, or you can create a blueprint. Now that option isn't there. If you don't have any blueprints saved, you're not going to see that option. Obviously, it's just going to be create a new site. It's going to launch into the create new site wizard. But that's easy. So click on a new, create a new website, and then click on the option create from a blueprint. Then you get to choose basically what blueprint you want, and it's very simple. You just click one on your list, and then click on continue. It's really, really that simple. And what that's going to do is it takes a couple of minutes, and then local will make a copy of that blueprint that you've configured, and then lo and behold, you have a new website that's pretty much ready to go for client development. It's really, really that easy. Okay, so what happens when your blueprint gets a little bit old and out of date and you need to update it? Now, you can see here in the previous ones, let's see this one, now, there's not very many options and you can't actually launch a blueprint on its own. So in order to update a blueprint, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to spin up a new site like this using one of the blueprints for those. And then spin up that website. Then go into the website, go into the back end, go into the admin for that, and then do as many updates as you can. So update your plugins, maybe remove some old plugins that you're not using anymore. You might want to do some theme updates. You might want to check out some of the new WordPress settings or features that's maybe been launched in new versions. And then just make sure that that site that you've spun up from the old blueprint is up to date. And then it really is as simple as just going through the process of saving a blueprint again. Save it as a new name, and then go into your blueprints, delete the old one, and then you can rename the new one to your blueprint. And that's basically. It's a shame that you can't do like general updates and stuff, but I think Local by Flywheel, I think the app, what it does is when it's creating a blueprint, I'm fairly sure it saves it as a zip file somewhere. So it's squashing all the template files, all the PHP files. It's extracting from the database and it's saving it as a zip file. So when you are spinning up a new blueprint, it's basically just unarchiving it to a different place on your file system and then updating the database for those. So I think because it's in a zip file, it's a bit difficult to update the zip file as is. So you need to do this whole process of creating a new site using the blueprint, update the site, then save it as a new blueprint with a new name, delete the old one, and then rename it to the other one. So that's the basic structure of how you create blueprints, how you update blueprints and use them as well. Now, that was a pretty quick one. That was my really, really quick introduction to local blueprints. It really, really does save you a whole heap of time booting up a new client website, especially if you are creating the same types of websites over and over again. Because things like WooCommerce settings, things like a Learn Dash site, there's a lot of settings in there, that you'll notice if you're doing these often, you're setting them up all the time. And it's just great to have something that's like a starter for 10 that you can just, boom, go there and you create this this website with all the plugins, all the settings installed for you. Jean's got a question. Is there an advantage to use blueprints instead of simply cloning a starter site? Not really. Not really, Jean. It's basically the same process for that. So if you have in local, if you've got a website like a starter website, you could just clone that, and it's as easy as right-hand clicking and saving clone for those. It's just, I guess, it's just the convenience of having maybe 3 or 4 different types of templates there that you're ready to go. What this really does work well with, if you're in a particular vertical, if you're in a particular niche, just say you're in the housing niche, the housing industry, you might have like 4 or 5 different realtor templates that you can kind of chop and change for different requirements, for different needs for those. And this is where blueprints kind of coming really handy. It's when you've got like multiple types of websites, but you've got kind of little tweaks. You might use a different theme for this. You might have one that's got a calendar plugin in it for those, and you've got kind of those set up and just ready to go. Rather just have like a base WordPress starter site with everything in it that you're cloning, and then you have to delete stuff and tweak stuff. So blueprints really come in on their own when you've got those kind of niche websites just kind of ready to go and you don't need to change anything else. But that's a great question, Jean. Thank you for that. Paul says, local is amazing. It is really good. I absolutely love it. And we've got some of the guys from Flywheel are in Sydney. They usually pop into some of the meetups. So I might do an overview of local, one of the big meetups again. We'll try and get some of those guys in as well. They've always got lots of freebies, stuff they can hand away, t-shirts and stuff. In fact, I think, come back on cam. I think I've still got some, there we go. So still got some Flywheel local t-shirts when they came to the last WordPress WordCamp meetup. So I might bring those along to some of the meetups and throw them out or reward them as questions. Okay, guys, well, thanks for that. If you've got any other questions, pop them down. I don't think there'll be many more questions because it's a fairly simple thing to do. It's really easy to do. Other than that, you can connect with me. So I've got a new website, willbrown.com, so please check that out. Otherwise, I can tend to hang out on LinkedIn mostly these days, a few posts on Instagram, and sometimes on Twitter as well. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Just a bit call out for next week. So next week on WP Quickies is my nemesis topic. This is archiving posts. So I think this is cursed. I've tried to do this 3 times now and had to reschedule for various reasons. But other than a limb falling off, we're going to be doing archiving posts as the WP Quickies topic for next week. So please join me then for archiving posts. Fingers crossed, nothing goes wrong, because I really want to do this one. Okay, guys, thank you so much for taking your time with me today, and I'll see you next week on WP Quickies. Ciao.